It's Tuesday, March, and we're going to get into the talking about ugly babies and stuff like that. We're not talking about you guys. I understand the confusion. Let's see, I'll talk about that. The IXL, grammar review, we'll talk about 9-week assessment. We're going to talk about all those things that are coming up to help you out. Yonder says the same. I said the same. So, as far as IXL goes, you have a week. It's not due until next Tuesday night, which is 1 week from today. It is connected to quiz tomorrow. If you do well on tomorrow quiz and get 27 or higher, then you are more than welcome to take a picture of it. Same thing we've done in the previous ones. I think this one might require a bit more thinking because you have to read like a sentence and then figure out what the verb is in the sentence. And then after you figure out what the verb is in the sentence, then you have to make sure it is done correctly. As in, like, is it the right tense kind of thing. So we'll sort of see how well you do. I tried to make you do a thinky thing to help you out as best we can. So that'll be due next week. Tomorrow, my goal with the review is I'm going to try to make your brains work with grammar. So we're going to try and do like some pre-work and then get into the quiz. I have an idea. Not the same game we did last week. We're going to try a different thing tomorrow to get you ready. We'll see how it goes. Then as far as the 9-week assessment on Friday goes, the way it's going to work is that you're going to have to read 3 articles, and then I was wrong. It is a full 5-paragraph essay. And so it is going to be a full essay you are writing where you compare these articles to your life. You will not have time on Friday to read the articles and write the 5 paragraphs. You are going to have to read the articles ahead of time, which is why I have posted them to Canvas, and I can show you what the 3 articles are. They do have a little bit of length to them. You have one about a homeless guy who finds a ring. All 3 of them are about making good choices in life. Another one is about a kid who steals a ball while he's at recess and gets in trouble for it. And then the last one is about how to be a good person. So you're going to read all 3 of them, and then you're going to write a little essay where you have to connect them together and then connect them to your life in some way. No. So that's what the assessment is going to be on Friday. Questions over either the IXL, the quiz, or the assessment on Friday, which you should probably not wait until Friday morning to read. Hi, Elena.
So the quiz thing for the IXL, was I not supposed to fill out my quiz?
I apologize. Then time.
Type the thing or do we write it?
Type it.
Yay!
Glad that brings. If not, if you write it by hand, how are you going to put it in the chat GPT?
That's a good point.
So, back to here. Let's get back to myth learning time. And so I think we have the whole front blue sheet. So for you guys, we were getting into the stuff on. So you really don't need the blue sheet out unless you need to look at it. In theory, you can keep your notebook closed for a moment too, and we're going to see how well you memorize things because you're going to be standing up and doing all of this stuff here shortly. So let's see what things are in your noggin, kid not paying attention who just woke up. So first off, the kingdoms, just to give you a quick reminder, what kingdom does Zeus take? Poseidon. And Hades. There you go. And then there's your little visual to help you out with your 3 kingdoms. Now Zeus is the king of all the gods. How many thrones on Mount Olympus?
6. A dozen.
That was scary. So now we have the 12 thrones, which is where we're going to start filling them in with our stories. So we started going through and doing our 12 throny things, except for the kid who was dead yesterday. And if you want to write these things down now, you can. We can help you out. Or if you watch the video, you may be on top of things. Who was our first god that gets to write them? Gets to make Good job, kids, not opening up their notebooks. As I said, your notebook is still closed, using your own brain with not me having to make fun of a kid. My favorite class. That was long enough for me to catch you and yell at you. And we have Zeus. What do we say for Zeus?
King of the gods.
There you go. Or your main op, however you want to say it. And then apparently we're already posing. So that's not a lightning bolt. That's you stabbing someone in the back, but you're on the right track. So you can have your lightning bolt and or trying to stab someone in the spine to cripple them. Or you can try to create your own lightning with a paper clip and a rubber band, but that lightning may come back to haunt you. He wasn't paying attention to me making fun of him. That's okay. Our next one to get a throne is Mrs. Hera. That's where Hera comes in. For her, we say
Queen
Queen of all gods comes in, and for her, we're not trying to stab a kid. And again, you have your options, whether you want to do your little huggy things, or if you want to do your baby shark thing, you can do your sparkle moose thing. I'm going to be putting on a crown that goes on top of head thing. And then after Hera, our next one to get a throne, for Poseidon, we say, and apparently for some of you, it looks like you're trying to box. It means, for some of you as I'm watching, when we go to Camp Tecumseh, you really need to make sure you do not fall out of the canoe. Because if you in water, watching you try to swim here, it is not going to go well if you hit the water. And you're like, Mr. Brovi, I'm going to make it to the shore. And I'm like, you are not going to make it to the shore. Unless you consider the bottom of the pond shore. And then there you go. It's delicious. I don't know. I've not drowned yet. I'll let you know when I do.
Did you have to wear a life jacket?
You do, but I don't know. Some of you guys are special. Oh, no, grass. This phrase is touch grass. After Poseidon, our next one to get a throne is Hades. Nicely done. And for some of you, if you want to leave Hades on your list as a reminder, because you need to remember that he got a throne, that's good. Why does he come off the list? There you go. Unlike you guys, he does not like to talk. So our next one to get a throne and keep it is, and that's where Demeter comes in. What do we say for her? God of Wheaties and tricks. Worked for me. And we got to her dance. There you go. This is also where I find out some of you have never mowed a lawn in your life either, and you're like, Mr. Bro, I'm mowing lawns. And I wish you the best of luck with that one too. Hi, Elena.
Can my dance be me getting run over by a lawnmower?
Sure. I also had kids in first period who wanted to do this for Demeter, where they were acting like they were touching grass. It seems weird. And apparently they don't know how touching grass works because this was their idea of touching grass. So I'm assuming that was their way of saying they've never done it. Way to make it weirder. Caleb. Sure. It's a lot like mowing a lawn, but instead you're putting things into a cart.
He's putting wheat cereal.
Yes. He's going to go wheat teas. Cheerios. Caleb O's. Hi, Caleb. Oh. Okay, sure. As long as you can creepily stare at me like Henry. So, after Demeter, our next one to get a throne is... And that's where Hestia comes in. I know I'm aware you're yelling at me. Yes, now you can open your notebook while not yelling at me. I'm shocked. So, Hestia, which was where we left off, home children, you can kind of see it up there. Above Bella, this was Hestia in that one there. And behind Billy, this is the one that's right there. That is Hestia also. With Hestia, a couple things. She is the god of something, which is the hearth and home, which is kind of a weird thing to be a god of. Do you guys know what a hearth is? Hey, no, that's harpa. Good try. Hearth is where you, for those of you who have Christmas trees, it is where you put your stockings. So, oddly enough, she was actually the god of fireplaces. And in Greek mythology, that was considered not only a real thing, an important thing. Because this was shortly after we had like indoor fiery places, and if you didn't want your kids to freeze in the wintertime and become kidsickles, having an indoor fireplace to keep your house warm was important. In the picture up there, which is the one I have here, to help you sort of see what's going on, she's not a ghost-ish. What it's supposed to be is, here's the fireplace, There you go. That's the chimney. Smoke is coming up, and she's supposed to be like looking over it, looking down to help them out. Man, you guys are all talky today. It's like you guys get all excited with a little bit of learning. Yes, well, you will be. And so that is where Hestia comes in. Also, Hestia is going to be one of the nicest gods in Greek mythology. Almost all of the gods we're going to get to, there are stories of them being bad and evil. Hestia, there is almost no stories of her being bad. She was one of the only legit nice ones. Which is why, when we get to these stories over here, she gives up her throne for one of them. To be nice to her brother, Zeus, she says, I will give up my throne, even though she's on a throne for years, and she is considered on the throne here, she does eventually give it up. So for here, much like her brother Hades, Hestia disappears. So again, if you want to circle it, you're more than welcome to, but Hestia does give up her throne. So at this point, here's your advanced class question. How many thrones currently have people sitting on them on Mount Olympus?
At least 2.
4.
5.
Why 5?
Because she hasn't given up yet.
Is correct. We still have Hestia on a throne, so we have 5 thrones filled in. Here's your next part. How many thrones are still empty?
6.
About 6, 7.
That was scary, watching us figure out how to do 12 minus 5, but we got there. So at this point, he has 7 thrones left to fill in. If we can remember the past days where Henry has asked questions, and every time after he asked one, I say, I'm sorry I called on you, here is where we learn, I don't call on you again. And so at this point, Zeus is trying to figure out how to fill in, the same reason I'm probably not going to call on Elena or call on Benta, because they have the same issues, right? Just ignore them. So at this point, Zeus wants to fill in the rest of his thrones, but he is out of brothers and sisters. And he only wants to fill in the thrones with people related to him that he can trust. So how would you fill in the rest of the thrones?
The rock.
Eat
The rock.
So he decides all the rest of the thrones are going to be his children. Now, the problem right now is he doesn't have any children. Luckily, he has an easy solution to that. But after Demeter, all of the rest of them as we go across, except for one, are going to be a child of Zeus. And he gives the rest of the thrones nepotism to his own children as they get a chance to step in. First off, he decides, easy mode, he has a wife, so they have children together. If you look on your white sheet, sorry, hiccups, they have 4 children together, 2 sons and 2 daughters. And again, sexism is alive and well. So of the 4 kids, the ones that are going to get thrones are the 2 boys. The 2 daughters, Hebe and Olympian, do not get thrones. One of them gets insulted, and the other one gets even worse than insulted. But for now, we're going to add in the 2 brothers. Hephaestus and Ares are going to be our next 2 to get thrones on Mount Olympus. Hebe and Olympian, I'm going to tell you more about here in just a moment. Hephaestus, we've talked about before. Again, Hephaestus, not hepatitis. He is the one that is over here. Oh, you can kind of see it on the screen. He's up there in that corner. And so here we have Hephaestus, who is, what was his job for the gods? So he is the god of metalsmiths. And, do you remember what else I told you about Hephaestus? Does live in Volcano. And crippled and ugly. Turns out, all of those things connect to the same story I'm getting ready to tell you. Him being ugly, him being crippled, him working in a volcano, and being the god of metalsmiths all come from the same story. Which is what we're going to get to here. Hi, Russell.
So, technically, about the curse that the Neptune guy gave
Yes.
Cronus, since Zeus is one of Cronus's kids,
Mhm.
why doesn't his kids try to overthrow Zeus?
They do.
Ah,
That's what we're going to get to.
okay.
How am I going to answer that?
We'll get to that.
There you go, Russell. So with this story, it begins with me still not calling on Henry and him giving me a dirty look. Yeah, I made a mistake. Look, Binta looks also just as upset. Then I will definitely call on you later. So at this point, we now have Zeus up on Mount Olympus, and he has his first son, a little boy by the name of Hephaestus. Hephaestus, running around on Mount Olympus as a little boy, makes the poor choice of going up and seeing his mom and dad fighting. And Zeus and Hera were yelling at each other one day, apparently about Zeus. Oh, by the way, there are two versions to how this happens, and I'm going to give you one of them, and then I will tell you the other version, the speedy one, at the end. But anyway, and he comes in to see them fighting about Zeus being friendly, and he decides to take his mom's side. And he's just yelling at Zeus also. It's like, you're a bad dad. You shouldn't be friendly with other people. That makes mommy sad. Zeus knows he's wrong, and he doesn't like being yelled at by his wife. He likes being yelled at by his son even less. To help him process his anger, he picks up little Hephaestus and starts shaking him. It was like, you shouldn't yell at your daddy. You're a bad child. And then to make it even worse, picks Hephaestus up above his head and goes, roar, whoop, and throws his child. Now, one, throwing children is probably a bad thing, and you shouldn't hug a child. Now, given, fine, I'll charge you points also. I keep forgetting how much you want me to charge you points. And, oh no, my pen doesn't work. I don't want to make her sad. Oh, there, now it's working. You don't have to be sad anymore. And so, yes, like shaken baby syndrome or shaken stick syndrome. And oh, look, it's a Henry face on a different kid. And so, myself, growing up, I used to throw my kids all the time. But we played a little game called Astronaut, where I would take the kids and then you would throw them up into the air. And then I would not catch them because I would have them land on the bed and they would like re-entry and they would like bounce onto our bed. Sometimes they would have a bad re-entry and you watch them go boing wee. And so that's okay. That's why you have backup kids. And so here, Zeus, having superhuman strength, he chucks his child. When bad when you have strength, worse when you live on mountain. And little Hephaestus goes flying all the way out into the middle of the ocean, where he's flying out over it and he sees little dolphins jumping, and he realizes this is not going to end well. Luckily for him, he sees a little island out in the middle of the ocean, and he decides this is where he wants to land, so he doesn't land into the water and drown. And so again, he can't die, but he's a child, he doesn't know that, and he starts flapping his little kid arms, flappy, 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 and manages to steer himself so that he lands on the island. But he lands all on one leg. And when he lands on that leg, kaboomity, all of the bones in that leg shatter and they smack. You guys know what an accordion is? Like a little musical instrument that accordion. And so his leg ends up looking like an accordion where it all goes ring on one side. Stories usually also say that after he landed on leg, he also kind of slid on his face a little bit, making him look on the ugly side. Normally, gods would heal from this. But it turns out when gods are little god children, they need this stuff called nectar and ambrosia, which is like god Gatorade, to heal them. Zeus is so angry at Hephaestus for getting up in his business and yelling at him, he declares no god is allowed to go visit Hephaestus. No god is allowed to go give him nectar and ambrosia. Hephaestus is banished. With no nectar and ambrosia to help him heal properly, his leg stays crooked like a little accordion, and his face ends up looking like roadkill gravel for the rest of his life. Even though he doesn't die from it, he doesn't heal well. And he is stuck on this island for years until he's a young man. Late teens, early 20s. Bored one day, as he's on this island, there's this giant mountain that's been on the island, but he never really had a chance to climb it or get to the top of it. And he starts hearing thunder coming from the top of this mountain. And he realizes who's up there. And that would be his father Zeus. So Hephaestus decides it is time to confront his father and work through his own anger and emotions. So even with his little slinky leg, he starts climbing up the side of it, doing his little as he gets all the way to the top of this mountain, looks around, and Zeus is not there. And it turns out all of this thunder is not coming from the top of the mountain. This thunder is coming from inside the mountain. And he keeps getting confused at how Zeus is inside of a mountain making big thundery booms. He's like, it has to be thunder. I've never heard anything so loud. So he starts finding these cave systems to get inside of this giant mountain. And when he does, he finds not Zeus, but another creature in there. And not one creature, but three creatures. And these three creatures are the giant Cyclops who are inside of there. And the Cyclops see this little crippled ugly kid coming up, and they're like, who are you? And he's like, I'm Hephaestus. I was thrown off of Mount Olympus for standing up to my father, and I've been banished down here. Well, the Cyclops don't care about Zeus's rules because they're bigger and older. So even though Zeus said no god can help them, it does not apply to the Cyclops. So the Cyclops adopt him and bring him in, and he becomes one of them. And so they start to train him in the thing that they do really well, and that is, apparently that was the you're right alarm going off. Good job. And so he starts learning how to make weapons from the Cyclops themselves. And he ends up being better at it than the Cyclops because he's Titan sized. So even though when they make weapons for the gods, they have to use like tweezers and a microscope, he can make weapons for the gods and they come out the normal size. Zeus is so impressed with all of these new weapons coming from the Cyclops, he goes down to confront them and he was like, hey, what changed? All of a sudden your weapons are even better than they were before and they're all proportional and correct. What changed? And they tell them about the fact that we found this little crippled guy and we brought him in and he has learned what we do. Zeus confronts little crippled guy and realizes he recognizes little crippled guy and goes, Hephaestus, I wondered where you were after I threw you away. Because of that, how would you like to come back up to Mount Olympus and make weapons for me and become one of the big gods? And Hephaestus, even though he's really angry at his father for crippling him and making him ugly and ruining his childhood, he goes, yeah, buddy, and he goes back to Mount Olympus and becomes the next god up there. And with Hephaestus, before I get a chance to call on Henry, the hand sign is pretty much the same thing we see Hephaestus doing in almost every single picture. And this is where we find out some of you guys should never be a carpenter and should never handle a hammer, because I'm watching you swing it around and you're going to hit yourself in the brain. But yes, you're going to go Hephaestus is going to be a... Hi, Henry, do you have a question? I had no idea.
So are all of the big color coasters the people that get thrown because there's 12 of them?
What did I tell Russell earlier?
Look at that.
Look at you. Caleb.
Technically, it's okay to throw children because you're saving them.
Yet, as long as it's out with... It was out of a window. You're right, Caleb. We did save that child.
Good job, Caleb.
And then Thursday, we're going to talk about Aries and his many, many issues. I think you should. We can only help him.